Space did not echo anymore. That was the first thing Commander Cartel noticed as the last warning alarms finally fell silent. No weapons fire cracked across the void. No impact tremors shuddered through the deck plating. No frantic voices screamed across emergency channels, begging for shields that would never come back online. There was only silence. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind. The kind that settled in after something violent had finished tearing the universe apart and moved on. Satisfied, Cartel stood motionless on the bridge of his flagship, his taloned hands clasped behind his back, staring out through a viewport webbed with hairline fractures. Beyond the glass, his fleet drifted like wounded animals, too exhausted to even limp anymore. Ships rotated slowly, uncontrolled. Hull plates hung open in jagged petals, scorched black and glowing faintly at the edges. Emergency lights blinked in uneven rhythms, struggling against the dark like dying stars that refused to admit they were already gone. Thin streams of atmosphere vented from multiple vessels, spiraling outward in shimmering ribbons. Each one caught the distant starlight and scattered it into fragile rainbows before fading into nothing. Beautiful and horrifying, because Cartel knew exactly what those colors were made of: breath, blood, lives that had ended without ceremony. We survived, he told himself. The thought didn't bring relief. Survival, he had learned, was not the same thing as victory. Sometimes it was simply the universe delaying your execution. Behind him, the bridge crew moved with the quiet efficiency of beings who had already screamed themselves hoarse. No one spoke unless necessary. No one made sudden movements. They worked the way trauma taught you to work, carefully, methodically, afraid that any sharp noise might summon the nightmare back. The pirate ambush replayed in Cartel's mind, uninvited and vivid. It had begun as most disasters did, with normalcy, routine transit, predictable trade routes, passive sensor sweeps showing nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then the shadows had moved, not charging, not broadcasting threats, just waiting. The pirates had been patient, disciplined. They let the fleet pass the optimal escape vectors before striking, jamming communications, disabling engines, cutting life support before weapons. They hadn't wanted cargo. They had wanted Bodhi's car. Tell's jaw tightened as the memory reached its conclusion. The moment he had ordered a blind jump, abandoning 2 crippled escort ships because saving them would have meant losing everything. A commander was trained to calculate losses, but numbers never included screams. "Commander," the navigator said softly, breaking the silence like glass cracking under pressure. Her voice carried the raw edge of someone who had spent hours shouting orders over chaos and smoke. Long-range scans confirm, no hostile signatures, no pursuit. For now, those 2 words echoed louder than any alarm. Car. Tell inclined his head in acknowledgement, but did not turn away from the viewport. He watched a fractured pirate hull tumble slowly past, its weapons arrays twisted into useless scrap. Even in death, the enemy looked ugly. "We won't survive another encounter," he said quietly, more to himself than to the crew. No one disagreed. Their engines were damaged beyond field repair. Weapon systems were slag. Shield generators were operating at a fraction of minimum safety thresholds. Several ships were 1 microfracture away from catastrophic hull failure. And fuel. Cartel glanced at the tactical display, hovering beside him. Fuel reserves glowed in warning. Hues. Critical. Insufficient. Laughably low. The galaxy had become a dangerous place for ships that could not run. His tactical officer hesitated before speaking again, mandibles twitching in a gesture that betrayed fear despite years of discipline. "There is one system within viable range." The words were careful, measured, as if speaking the name too loudly might draw its attention. Tell finally turned. "Show me." The holographic map expanded between them, stars drifting past like frozen embers. Trade routes dimmed. Friendly markers faded one by one, until only emptiness remained. Then a single star burned brighter than the rest. At its center, a blue-green planet pulsed softly. The designation beneath it caused a visible ripple of discomfort across the bridge. Even seasoned officers stiffened. Instinctively, Deathworlds were places the galaxy avoided, places where gravity crushed fragile bones, atmospheres poisoned the unadapted, and native life evolved, not just to survive but to dominate. Earth was infamous even among them. Unpredictable weather systems, aggressive megafauna, a dominant species that had evolved through constant internal conflict. And humans. Cartel had studied the files like everyone else. Fragmented reports, contradictory intelligence, incomplete war records sealed behind diplomatic silence. A species that had nearly wiped itself out more than once. Sand somehow emerged stronger every time. Militarized, possibly, hostile, unclear, dangerous, without question. Earth is not a registered salvage port, one officer said carefully. Their response protocols are inconsistent. That was an understatement. Some reports claimed humans welcomed outsiders with open arms and trade agreements. Others spoke of entire fleets vanishing after violating poorly understood boundaries. No formal declaration of hostility. No guarantees of safety. Cartel looked back at his drifting fleet. At the ship's bleeding atmosphere. At the engineers running out of miracles. At the crew who pretended not to be listening but absolutely were. If we don't dock somewhere, he thought, we won't die in battle. We'll suffocate, freeze, drift. Slow deaths were the cruelest ones. How long until total system failure across the fleet? He asked. 17 hours, the navigator replied. Less, if life support continues degrading. 17 hours. Earth was 12. Cartel closed his eyes for a single heartbeat. A commander was expected to choose the least terrible option. He opened them again. Set course for Sol, he said, voice steady, despite the weight pressing down on his chest. Broadcast distress protocols. Full transparency. No weapons targeting. No power spikes. A pause. And he hesitated, then added quietly, prepare emergency evacuation plans, just in case. The crew moved immediately. Stars began to stretch, as navigation calculations finalized. The familiar pressure of hyperspace initiation thrummed beneath the deck, as the fleet aligned for the jump. Cartel allowed himself one final look at the wreckage they were leaving behind. The pirate dead drifted silently. Their threat ended, but the fear they had carved into his fleet would linger far longer. Earth, he thought, a Deathworld. A gamble. But at least, according to fragmented rumors, humans answered their COMMs. As the jump drive engaged and space folded around them, Cartel spoke softly, too quietly for the bridge microphones to catch. If we're going to die, he murmured, I'd rather do it somewhere that looks you in the eye first. The stars vanished, and the fleet fell toward Earth. The fleet was dying long before Earth ever appeared on their charts. Not all at once. Not dramatically. It was the slow kind of death, the kind that crept through systems and morale alike. Quiet and humiliating. Power grids flickered. Life support ran at 70%. Hull fractures hissed softly like whispered countdowns. Commander Valroon stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching a star that no longer mattered. Behind him, the bridge crew worked in silence. Not disciplined silence. Ashamed silence. They were mercenaries. Professionals hired to escort a convoy through what was supposed to be safe territory. Instead, pirates had torn into them with surgical precision. No grand battle, no heroic stand. Just ambush, ion nets and railgun fire, ripping through shields that should have held. They had survived. That was the problem. Survival without victory left a bitter taste. Report, Valroon said at last. The navigation officer swallowed. FTL drives on 3 ships are offline. 2 more are unstable. If we jump again, we risk losing them to misalignment. And if we don't, we bleed, the officer replied quietly. Oxygen, coolant, time. Valroon nodded once. Time was the most dangerous leak of all. The tactical officer stepped forward. Commander, there is one system within sublight range. Valroon turned slowly. Define one. The officer hesitated. That hesitation spoke volumes. Sol, he said. Local designation, Earth. A ripple passed through the bridge. Earth. Earth, VAE. Ruin felt the name settle into his bones like cold dust. A neutral world. A minor power. A species barely tolerated in the wider galactic community. Humans. They were traders, engineers, mediators, known more for diplomacy than dominance. Their space was technically protected by treaties, but no one took those treaties seriously. Why would they? Earth had never fought a real interstellar war. Valroon exhaled slowly. Distance, 2 days at sublight navigation replied. 1. If we push reactors beyond safety margins, we'll lose another ship if we do. Engineering added. Valroon closed his eyes. There were rules in this galaxy unwritten, but absolute. He did not limp into a neutral system, unless you were prepared to be humiliated. Interned, disarmed, possibly ransomed, but the alternative was dying between stars, slowly, and without witnesses. Set course for Sol, Valroon ordered. No one argued. The fleet turned, engines flaring weakly as damaged vessels struggled to stay in formation. Valroon watched the stars shift, his reflection faintly visible in the viewport. He looked older than he had a week ago. As the hours passed, status reports worsened. Medical bays overflowed. Gravity fluctuated on Ship 7. A reactor containment field collapsed briefly on Ship 2, killing 3 engineers before emergency bulkheads. Sealed. Every loss carved another notch into Valrune's conscience. He had taken this contract for the credits. Now, his people were paying for it. Commander Sensor said quietly, "We're being observed." Valrune's eyes snapped. Open. Clarified. Passive scans only. Long range. From Sol's outer system. They'd been noticed. Valrune straightened. "Do not respond," he said. "No active signals. Let them assess." That was standard protocol. The scans continued. Not aggressive. Not invasive. Curious. That should not have been reassuring. As Earth grew larger on the forward display, Valrune studied it closely. He had seen recordings, of course, but there was something unsettling about seeing it directly. So alive. So unguarded. Green and blue, wrapped in cloud, bathed in warm stellar light. No visible planetary shields. No massive orbital weapon arrays. Just satellites. Thousands of them. Civilian patterns. Communication networks. Navigation beacons. They really are neutral. Someone whispered. Valrune wasn't convinced. Neutral does not mean weak, he said. It means untested. The first message arrived without ceremony. No warning tone. No coded challenge. Just a comm signal requesting channel access. "Commander," Com said. "Incoming transmission. Human origin." Valrune nodded. "Put it through." The image that formed was unexpected. A human male, middle-aged, wearing what appeared to be a simple jacket, rather than armor. Behind him was a window revealing a cityscape far below. Lights glowing softly in the twilight. "Unidentified fleet," the human said pleasantly. "This is Earth orbital coordination. We're detecting critical damage across multiple hulls. Are you requesting assistance?" Valrune blinked. No accusations. No warnings about restricted space. Just help. "This is Commander Valrune," he replied carefully. "We are seeking temporary refuge. Repairs only. We will compensate according to standard rates." The human smiled slightly. "We don't charge for emergency aid," he said. "Docking clearance granted. Medical teams are already prepping." Valrune felt something twist in his chest. "You offer this freely?" "Of course," the human replied. "You're hurt. That's kind of the point of neighbors." Neighbors. The word felt dangerous. "What about weapons?" Valrune asked. "Our ships are armed." The human waved a hand dismissively. "Just keep them powered down while in orbit. Safety reasons. Happens all the time." All the time, as if war-torn alien fleets limping into Earth were routine. The channel closed. Valrune stood very still. "This is wrong," the tactical officer said quietly. "No inspections. No escort." "Yes," Valrune agreed. "Either they are fools." He watched Earth fill the viewport, or they are so confident they don't feel the need. The fleet entered orbit without interference. Docking, systems activated, automatically human. Technology interfacing seamlessly with alien. Hulls as if designed with them in mind. Repair craft swarmed the damaged ships. Efficient and calm. Human. Voices echoed over internal comms. "Hull breach. Sealed life. Stabilized. Medical evac inbound." Too fast. Too smooth. Valrune's unease deepened when the first human boarding team arrived. They were smiling. One of them carried a small container, setting it down on a console. "Welcome to Earth," she said cheerfully. "We brought coffee. You look like you need it." Valrune stared at the container. Coffee. Whatever this world truly was. It was not what the galaxy believed, and something told him that before they left, they would learn the truth the hard way. The alien captain watched from the bridge. As the human engineer floated outside his flagship, magnetic boots locking her to the scorched hull, sparks leaped from her welding tools, like a shower of tiny stars, each one reflecting off the fractured plating that still smelled faintly of ozone and burnt circuits. The armor she was installing was wrong in every technical sense. Varactyl, the veteran of 40 campaigns, knew possible, too thick, too dense, too advanced for the kinds of weapons his fleet had encountered in this sector. Yet she worked with casual precision, adjusting her tools as if this was nothing more than routine maintenance, sipping from a silver pouch as though the apocalypse had never touched her. World Varactyl swallowed the lump forming in his throat. "How many empires have weapons capable of piercing that plating?" he asked quietly, keeping his tone measured. The engineer paused, glancing at him briefly before returning to her work. "Most of them," she said simply. Then, in a voice tinged with a quiet, unbearable gravity, she added, "Once they really mean it." He felt the chill ripple through him, deeper than any vacuum or firestorm he had ever survived. "And why," he asked cautiously, "would humans prepare for weapons like that?" Her gaze fixed on him then, steady and unwavering, tired but resolute. "We lost 1 billion people before we figured this one out," she replied. Then she turned back to the hull as if the conversation had never happened. The fleet limped in orbit above Earth, battered and broken. Hull breaches sealed with emergency foam hissed against the vacuum. Engines groaned under stress, and crew exhaustion ran so deep it bordered on spiritual collapse. They had barely survived a battle against a rival empire, a confrontation that had escalated from border skirmish to attempted annihilation in under a single solar cycle. Earth was not on any original mission. Planet was a last resort. Class-12 Deathworld, unpredictable and historically violent. Earth was where no fleet voluntarily sought repairs, but the alternative, drifting into empty space, waiting for life support to fail, was worse. When the first communication came through, Varictal braced himself. There was no warning tone, no coded challenges, just a calm, pleasant human voice that said, "This is Earth Orbital Coordination. We're detecting critical damage across multiple hulls. Are you requesting assistance?" The image of a man, middle-aged, casually dressed, with a city glowing softly behind him, filled the viewport. Varictal felt a tremor of disbelief. No accusations, no inspections, just a polite offer to help. "Doc, where you're comfortable," the human added after a pause. "Medical teams are already en route." It was as if the galaxy's expectations of fear, hostility, and suspicion were irrelevant here. They were not hostile. They were not naive. They were uncomfortably competent. Human repair crews moved with terrifying efficiency. They worked day and night, joking quietly among themselves, drinking steaming coffee from containers that floated beside them in microgravity. They offered more than repair, they offered upgrades. Shields calibrated to resist energy types thought to be purely theoretical. AI-assisted targeting systems trained on centuries of warfare data. Armor layering that defied known material science. Every improvement came with the same simple explanation: we don't charge for survivability. Varictal's Bridge Council held secret meetings to debate whether to accept such gifts. Nothing this powerful in the galaxy was ever free. Accepting could destabilize local power balances, inviting war, conquest, or subjugation. Refusing might doom them at the next encounter. Humanity did not negotiate. Humanity did not explain. They simply did what had to be done, and watched, silently, for intent. Slowly, the history of these upgrades became clear. In quiet moments, over meals, during system diagnostics, human engineers shared stories. Extinction wars that had threatened entire continents. Technologies forged during near collapse. Every advance born from suffering so profound it defied comprehension. One engineer pointed at a shield emitter. "Came after a city stopped existing in under 3 seconds," she said matter of. Another, holding a piece of experimental armor, added, "We tried lighter versions. Millions died before we figured this one out." These weren't boastful tales. They were memories, etched into every layer of the technology being gifted to the alien fleet. Humanity innovated not to dominate, but to survive. They remembered, and they made sure no one else forgot either. The realization struck Varictal at the moment when the rival empire jumped into Earth's outer orbital lanes. They came heavy, expecting to catch a fleet unprepared mid-upgrade, aiming to seize advanced human technology by force. But humans did not panic. They moved as if the battle had already been calculated. Every docking bay sealed. Personnel recalled. Installation completed even as lasers and railguns flared in orbit. Ships previously invisible in Earth's shadows emerged seamlessly. Not aggressively, but in positions that made every offensive calculation by the intruders immediately obsolete. The rival fleet's engines were locked, weapons neutralized, command crews disoriented, and yet not a single unnecessary life lost. Humans did not announce themselves. They did not shout. They simply ended the engagement with precision that felt almost inhuman in its efficiency. Varictal realized, horrified, that this was not power being wielded. It was deterrence perfected. Earth had no need to prove strength. They had simply always been ready. The aftermath was quieter still. The enemy withdrew, stunned into compliance, and humanity returned to their routines. Repair crews floated back to their stations, sipping coffee, welding upgrades, monitoring shields and life support, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Varictal stood on his bridge, watching the alien ships being reborn, stronger than ever. He understood the unspoken pact. These gifts, These upgrades were not leverage. They were a legacy. Humanity offered survival, not domination, and the galaxy had underestimated them at its own peril. When he finally authorized the full integration of all systems, the engineer nodded, almost fondly. "Good choice," she said softly. "We hate watching good people die." When the fleet departed days later, their hulls gleaming and systems humming with enhancements beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Their logs carried no threats, no propaganda, only a quiet warning, sealed under the highest clearance levels. Human technology is memorial. Every system exists because someone didn't survive the last version. Earth resumed its quiet vigilance. Warships retreated to shadow, and repair crews returned to coffee and laughter. Humanity did not need the galaxy to acknowledge them. They did not need fear or respect. They only needed survival and a commitment that no one else would determine who deserved it. And in that silence, Varictal realized the full weight of humanity's truth. Kindness and lethality could exist in the same heart, without contradiction, and those who underestimated them would pay for it, one way or another. Earth had long been considered neutral ground, a sanctuary where even sworn enemies could dock without fear of reprisal. Traders, refugees, and mercenaries alike whispered tales of a planet that tolerated all, but demanded none. Its reputation stretched across star systems like a quiet promise. No power, no empire, no law could force its hand without consequences. For decades, that promise had held. That illusion was about to shatter. The first sign of trouble appeared at the edge of the Sol system, a fleet of alien ships limping into orbit. Hulls bore fresh scars, engines sputtered unevenly, and shields flickered with exhaustion. Their commander, Jexkal, grim and wary, had only one hope left. Every other port in the galaxy had turned them away, citing treaties, territorial claims, or fear of reprisal. They were being pursued by the enforcers of a distant galactic authority, a fleet that wielded law as ruthlessly as it wielded weapons. Their approach was deliberate, relentless, and terrifying. The refugees' options were gone. Earth remained the only variable they had not yet exhausted. Human traffic control responded with uncanny calm. Docking permissions granted. Please proceed to Bay 14. Emergency repair crews are en route, the voice said over comms. There was no interrogation, no threat, no bureaucratic gauntlet. Humans had always done this, welcoming the desperate, while appearing entirely ordinary. Jexkal and his officers could barely believe it. After years of dodging ambushes, bureaucracy, and betrayal, they were met with civility. It was unnerving, almost disorienting. The fleet advanced, engines humming with the fragile life of dying ships, to the assigned docking bay. Humans were waiting, as they always seemed, to be silent, prepared, and casually efficient. As repairs began, the first signs of humanity's subtle power became apparent. Docking bays, once considered standard, revealed hidden compartments and advanced structural reinforcements. Civilian shuttles shifted seamlessly into defensive positions. Satellites quietly realigned to strategic vantage points, and repair crews moved with precision that suggested far more training than their casual demeanor implied. They joked, passed tools, sipped coffee, and repaired ships with a calm mastery that masked lethal capability. Jexkal noticed it immediately. These humans were not naive, and they were not helpless. They were choosing exactly how much of themselves to reveal. Meanwhile, the Authority fleet closed in. Comms channels lit up with commands, ultimatums, and threats, demanding immediate surrender of the refugees. Humanity responded not with bluster, not with fury, but with patience and subtle subterfuge. Bureaucratic delays, polite clarifications, and calm counter-requests slowed the approaching fleet. Every action bought time. Every gesture reinforced the idea that neutrality was respected and sacred. The refugees watched, first with hope, then with dawning unease, as humans orchestrated a ballet of preparation so quiet that it almost seemed invisible. But it was lethal. Tension built incrementally, like a slowly tightening vice. Humans repaired hulls while simultaneously upgrading power cores, recalibrating shields, and subtly repositioning fleets in orbit. They did not announce these moves. They did not boast. Each adjustment was made with surgical precision. The refugees began to realize that what they had thought was ordinary repair work was actually a comprehensive defensive measure, executed without a single outward sign of aggression. Every ship, every satellite, every bay had been considered and fortified for the inevitable confrontation. Humans did not fear the law enforcers. They had simply anticipated them. Then the first attempt to breach the docking zones occurred. The Authority fleet, confident in its lawful superiority, accelerated toward Earth with weapons primed and strategy set. They expected resistance, but resistance of a conventional kind. Force, negotiation, intimidation. What they encountered was something entirely different. Docking bays sealed automatically. Civilian ships moved to intercept without warning, and previously hidden warships emerged into orbital positions with uncanny timing. The humans did not fire immediately. They did not lock weapons in dramatic displays. They waited for the moment of absolute need. When action was taken, it was decisive and precise. Authority vessels had engines disabled, command modules rendered inert, and weapons systems neutralized in coordinated strikes that left no room for retaliation. Not a single civilian or repair ship was harmed. The Authority fleet had assumed neutrality meant weakness. They were wrong. Humanity did not act out of wrath. Humanity acted out of principle, and they did so with unparalleled efficiency. Within moments, the intruding fleet was forced to retreat, stunned by the quiet lethality they had underestimated. For the refugees, the display was surreal. Only minutes before, they had felt trapped between predator and prey. But now they saw a civilization capable of annihilating fleets without fanfare or frenzy. Humans had not boasted. They had not raged. They had merely demonstrated the cost of violating a principle that had been cultivated across centuries. Jexkal understood immediately. This was not an act of aggression. It was a measured assertion of sovereignty and the limits of sanctuary. After the confrontation, the docking bays returned to normal. Repair crews resumed their work. Coffee floated gently beside them. Sparks flew from welding stations, and shields were recalibrated as if the battle had never occurred. Refugees were escorted back to their ships fully repaired. Some upgraded, all alive. Humanity had delivered an unspoken message. Neutrality had a price, and violating it carried a consequence that was immediate and unavoidable. The galaxy, which had long assumed Earth's kindness implied weakness, had been corrected. As the alien fleet departed, the Authority fleet retreated, re-evaluating assumptions about the civilization they had underestimated for centuries. Earth itself returned to routine. Civilian traffic resumed. Repair crews continued their labor, warships returned to shadow, and cities pulsed with life, oblivious to the cosmic lesson just imparted. The refugees, their ships and hope restored, realized the full weight of what had transpired. They had not only survived because of Earth's neutrality, they had survived because humans had chosen carefully, acted decisively, and enforced their principle without theatrics. In orbit, Jexkal looked down at the planet, cities twinkling like quiet stars. Unaware of the near catastrophe that had unfolded above, he understood that humanity had never needed to assert dominance to be feared, never needed to announce its strength to be respected. Their neutrality was conditional, enforced not with words, but with preparation and silent precision. And as the alien fleet slipped into the void towards safety, they carried with them a profound lesson. Earth's sanctuary came at a cost, but that cost had been calculated with a clarity and quiet ruthlessness the galaxy had long ignored. Kindness was not weakness, neutrality was not passive, and crossing the humans' line would be a mistake. None would survive to repeat. Alien scanners had long assumed that Earth was ordinary. No massive fleets lingered in orbit. No overtly armed warships patrolled the void. Satellite traffic appeared civilian. Communication arrays seemed dedicated to trade and research. From a distance, Earth looked like a planet that nurtured science, commerce, and routine human life. The visiting alien commander, Vrilka, scanned every quadrant, eyes narrowing at the absence of expected deterrence. Nothing. Perfectly ordinary. Yet something about that ordinariness felt deliberate. The first hint that Earth was hiding something came not from sensors but from subtle anomalies. As the alien fleet docked, the engineers noticed restricted orbital zones where civilian satellites would normally orbit freely. Mass fluctuations were detected in empty space, odd gravitational readings that suggested immense hidden structures. Ships outside repair bays moved with a purpose that seemed casual yet calculated, as if they existed in dual layers of visibility. Mundane to the untrained eye, precise to those who knew what to look for. Vrilka's crew exchanged uneasy glances. Something was wrong. Something was being concealed. And the humans seemed utterly unconcerned about hiding it. Repair crews arrived shortly after docking. Moving with the usual calm efficiency, they floated between ships, inspecting hulls, calibrating weapons, and adjusting power cores while sipping coffee or chatting lightly with alien engineers. It was disarming. They joked about shift schedules, complained about the cafeteria food, and argued over minor technical points, human trivialities, in the face of interstellar survival. Vrilka felt a creeping unease. The aliens had faced ambushes, blockades, and boarding attempts before. Yet these humans exhibited no fear, no rush, no hesitation. Every gesture, every casual smile, was a study in control. For days, repairs continued, and the alien fleet grew increasingly aware of inconsistencies. Ships appeared and disappeared in ways that defied explanation. Asteroids shifted subtly, and orbital masses adjusted in patterns that should have been impossible. Sensors that once seemed reliable failed to account for the hidden complexity. Humans repaired their fleet efficiently, while quietly preparing defenses, without so much as a glance toward Vrilker's crew. It was as if the fleet had been in Earth's shadow all along, waiting for the moment it might be required. Invisible yet omnipresent. Then came the first attack, a surprise strike from a coalition that had assumed Earth was defenseless. Vrilker's sensors flared with alerts, but there was no panic among the human crews. From the planet's surface, industrial complexes shifted, rotating cranes revealing gun emplacements, research satellites aligning into firing positions, and orbital stations peeling back layers to reveal missile bays and energy cannons. The civilian infrastructure, the stations, even asteroid belts had been adapted into a network of weapons that only revealed itself when needed. Vrilker realized the truth too late. Humanity had never hidden its fleet. They had hidden their intent. The attack unfolded like a slow-motion disaster for the aggressors. First, human warships emerged from folded space. Their appearance, sudden yet precise, cutting off retreat vectors and isolating enemy ships with lethal efficiency. Orbital defense grids activated, asteroids shifted to reveal concealed cannons, and civilian satellites, long assumed inert, reconfigured into weapons platforms with instantaneous precision. Each strike was calculated not for spectacle, but for efficiency. Enemy vessels were disabled, captured, or destroyed before they could understand the scale of the deception. Vrilker's officers attempted to intervene, to draw human fire, to salvage a tactical advantage. It was useless. Every offensive calculation they made had been anticipated, neutralized, or rendered irrelevant by a civilization that had perfected the art of hidden readiness. The alien commander felt a gnawing fear. The sort that comes when a species you underestimated executes a strategy you never even imagined. Humans were not attacking out of anger. They were asserting control, demonstrating capability, and enforcing the unspoken rule. Earth's sovereignty could not be violated, and those who assumed weakness would pay. Despite the chaos in orbit, humans continued to move with a calm, methodical precision. Repair crews finished hull replacements, while orbital gunships coordinated simultaneous interdiction strikes. Civilian engineers directed energy shields around critical installations, deflecting missiles mid-flight, while the main fleet, previously invisible in Earth's orbital shadows, struck the enemy from multiple vectors. There was no shouting, no fanfare, only the eerie, relentless effectiveness of a civilization that had mastered deterrence through preparation. The aggressor's fleet was annihilated within minutes, leaving debris scattered across the void, silent and final. No human ship suffered a casualty. No civilian vessel was harmed. The alien fleet, including Vrilker, watched in stunned disbelief. What they had assumed to be ordinary infrastructure was, in fact, a meticulously hidden fleet capable of overwhelming any attacker with precision and minimal risk. Every assumption about humanity's harmlessness had been proven false. The galaxy had been watching the wrong indicators. Humanity's strength was not in what was visible, it was in what was never meant to be seen. After the attack, calm returned. Humans did not celebrate. Repair crews continued their work. Coffee containers floated beside welders, and sparks from ongoing installations lit the repair bays like miniature constellations. Vrilker's fleet, previously terrified, now approached with cautious deference. Ships were upgraded quietly, repairs completed with efficiency that suggested centuries of refined practice. No threats were issued, no proclamations made. Humanity had merely demonstrated capability and returned to routine, leaving observers to question what they had just witnessed. The moral lesson was subtle, yet absolute. Humans had built a civilization that combined kindness with lethality, civility with efficiency, and deception with transparency. The galaxy assumed weakness. Humans assumed patience. The fleet Vrilker had thought ordinary had been extraordinary all along. The question was not whether humans could fight, they clearly could, but when and under what circumstances they chose to act. That calculus alone had preserved life, secured territory, and reshaped alliances without a single unnecessary death. As the alien fleet departed, fully repaired and upgraded, the city lights of Earth pulsed quietly below, oblivious to the orbital devastation that had just occurred above. Humans returned to their routines, civilian traffic, maintenance work, casual conversation, and coffee. They had never intended to reveal their fleet in the first place. It was not pride, not arrogance, not theater, it was strategy. A fleet's value was not measured by its visibility, but by the certainty that it existed, ready, disciplined, and lethal. The galaxy had witnessed a glimpse of human warfare, efficient and final, and the lesson was unmistakable. Underestimate humanity at your own peril. Vilko stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out at the planet that had disguised such power behind apparent ordinariness. He felt awe, fear, and reluctant respect all at once. The humans had shown him a truth few in the galaxy would ever understand. The greatest strength was not the ability to destroy, but the ability to hide that strength until it was needed, then use it with terrifying precision. He recorded the lesson carefully in fleet logs, knowing it would alter every future engagement, every strategy, every assumption about the human race. Humanity had hidden its fleet, and the galaxy had finally seen just enough to know it should never look away again. The alien fleet drifted into Earth's orbit, battered, weary, and near the end of its operational life. Commander Thalix of the Ravik Collective slumped in the command chair, staring out through fractured observation panels at the blue and green sphere below. His ships, once sleek and powerful, bore the scars of constant harassment in hostile galaxy hull breaches, shield instability, engines screaming with uneven thrust. The fleet had survived only by evasion, by luck, and by sheer stubbornness, and now they had nowhere else to go. Earth, Thalix muttered, almost in disbelief. The so-called neutral world. He had heard the stories, like every fleet commander had. Earth accepted all comers, feared no empire, and yet, somehow, remained untouched by conquest. It sounded almost mythical. Yet, as he gazed at the planet, the whispers of legend felt dangerously real. "We are running out of time," he said to his bridge officers, his voice weary. "We survive or we perish here." Human traffic control responded calmly, almost lazily, as though the fleet were arriving late for a scheduled appointment. "Docking permissions granted," the voice said. "Matt, repair crews are ready. We recommend Bay 21 for large capital ships." The simplicity of the message was almost insulting, as if the most advanced fleet in the quadrant were merely a visitor dropping in for routine maintenance. Thalix frowned, wary. Nothing about humanity was ever ordinary, and yet here they were, welcoming near-dead ships with the same politeness one might reserve for a morning commute. Repair crews arrived within hours, and what struck the aliens first was their composure. Humans floated through the zero-gravity bays, welding, calibrating, upgrading systems, and exchanging casual banter over coffee mugs that seemed impossibly mundane, given the scale of their task. No urgency, no panic, no desperation, just efficiency and quiet mastery. Thalix observed the crew installing advanced shielding arrays, AI-assisted targeting systems, and power relays that were decades ahead of what his fleet could understand. He asked a human engineer why they offered such upgrades freely, expecting some trick, some hidden cost. "We lost 1 billion people before we figured this one out," the human said casually, shrugging. The tone was almost nonchalant, almost humorous, yet the weight behind it was unmistakable. Every piece of technology, every shield, every enhancement had been forged in suffering, in near-extinction events, in wars that had threatened humanity itself. It was a gift wrapped in warning. Survived. Yes, but never forget what created this capability. Thalix and his officers exchanged nervous glances. This was no ordinary repair. It was not mere generosity. Was a test. Every upgrade offered carried consequences. Increased firepower, enhanced defense, strategic advantage. Accepting it could destabilize regional power balances, putting the Ravik Collective in a position they were ill-prepared for politically. Rejecting it could leave them vulnerable, a tempting target for rivals. Humanity had handed them a choice, but the choice itself was a lesson in morality, strategy, and foresight. The fleet had barely absorbed the upgrades when intelligence reports arrived. Another empire, long rivals of the Ravik Collective, had detected the fleet in orbit and assumed weakness. Believing Earth unprepared, they mobilized an assault fleet, planning to seize or annihilate the alien vessels while they were distracted. Thalix's officers began panic protocols, but Thalix froze, watching the humans calmly coordinating repairs and fleet movements as if they had anticipated this scenario. Then the first ships of the invading force arrived. Thalix's sensors flared as the enemy attempted to cut off retreat vectors. Human warships, previously indistinguishable from commercial or research vessels, moved with precision across orbital lanes. Asteroids shifted, revealing concealed artillery and satellites, long thought inert, reconfigured into weapons platforms in an orchestrated sequence that seemed impossible. The humans were not acting in aggression, they were asserting control, protecting life, and demonstrating lethal efficiency. The battle unfolded with staggering clarity. Each human strike was calculated for maximum efficiency. Enemy engines failed, weapons were neutralized, and command modules destroyed in a coordinated assault that left no room for retaliation. Human crews acted without hesitation, without emotion, without theatrics. From the alien perspective, it was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Civilization had developed a doctrine that combined patience, preparation, and precision to devastating effect. The lesson was clear: underestimate humans, and survival was impossible. As the battle ended, silence returned. Enemy ships were incapacitated or destroyed. Human casualties were minimal. Civilian traffic remained untouched. And the repaired alien fleet floated intact, fully upgraded, and alive. Thalix finally understood. The humans were reluctant guardians, not conquerors. They did not seek to dominate the galaxy. They intervened when extinction, chaos, or catastrophic imbalance threatened. Their strength was a tool, precise and deliberate, wielded to protect rather than oppress. In the quiet aftermath, human engineers resumed repairs. Coffee mugs floated beside welders. Sparks lit their repair bays like miniature auroras, and the aliens were gently escorted to their upgraded ships. Thalix approached the lead human engineer, voice low and reverent. "Why help us?" he asked. The engineer smiled faintly, casual yet profound. "Because someone has to. We don't expand to rule. We intervene to preserve. The galaxy doesn't need rulers. It needs a chance to survive. And sometimes, that chance comes with upgrades." There was no pride, no arrogance, no moral posturing, just clarity, purpose, and unwavering principle. Thalix realized the full scope of what had occurred. Earth had been watching galactic politics for centuries, anticipating moments of imbalance, observing conflicts, measuring threats. They had built a fleet capable of obliterating aggressors, but had concealed it to avoid provocation. They had cultivated technology, forged through suffering, offering it as a lifeline to those who required it most. The alien fleet had not only been repaired, they had been handed a future. The moral weight of the encounter lingered long after repairs were complete. Thalix and his crew understood that humans did not seek glory or conquest. Their interventions were precise, minimal, and strategically calculated, preserving life and order without unnecessary chaos. The galaxy had misjudged them for centuries, assuming civility implied weakness. What it had failed to recognize was that humanity's true strength was patience, observation, and disciplined restraint. As the alien fleet departed, engines humming steadily, shields shimmering with newly installed energy matrices, Thalix looked back at Earth one last time. The planet glowed softly below, cities alive and unaware of the orbital display of controlled devastation. Humans had returned to their routines: civilian traffic, maintenance, casual conversation, and coffee. They had never intended to reveal the full extent of their power. They had acted not out of pride, not out of desire for recognition, but because the galaxy had no other choice. They were the guardians no one asked for, the protectors no one knew existed until the moment it mattered. In the void between stars, Thalix recorded his report. "We came seeking repairs," he noted. "We left with a future. Humanity is neither expansionist nor conquest-driven. Their intervention is precise, their strength concealed, their purpose protective. Underestimate them at your own peril." He paused, realizing that the lesson would echo through every council, every alliance, every fleet for generations to come. Humanity had shown restraint, decisiveness, and unparalleled foresight. They had acted not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as custodians of survival itself. And as the alien fleet disappeared into the void, Earth resumed its quiet rhythm. Repair bays continued their work, coffee steamed in cups, and civilian life flowed with calm ordinary. The galaxy could only speculate, could only wonder at the civilization that balanced kindness with lethal precision, hospitality with lethal deterrence, observation with intervention. One day, perhaps, they would understand fully. For now, humanity's role was clear: to act when extinction threatened, to preserve life without claiming dominion, and to remind the stars that survival sometimes demanded guardians who never sought glory, but ensured the future nonetheless.